Can we take seriously a tarot deck created by a man who paints scantily clad or even naked women and erotica? Can we take that artist seriously if they painted images before being applied to the tarot? Luis Royo has been one of my favorite fantasy artists, and today I go beyond Royo's Dark Tarot to show you the secrets behind this deck that make this a real serious tarot deck of really interesting proportions. I want to get into the stories. Let's get behind and beyond Luis Royo's tarot. On screen, I believe, is an image of Luis Royo. He is a famous Spanish artist. Has been painting amazing artwork, and I would show you some, but we're going to look at his cards in detail, and you'll see plenty of his artwork. But I've long been fascinated by the fantasy artwork, scantily clad women, beautiful warriors, often fantasy with sword and sorcery type themes, sometimes winged weird creatures, occult type symbology. I've loved the art, and I found in my collection of tarot decks an unopened copy of the Royo Tarot that I put on the small screen. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know I had this still sitting there. And I took a look at it today, and I want to share with you some amazing insights from this. So on screen real quick, this is kind of a little spread that shows a little bit of the teaser of the artwork. But I want to tell you a little bit about the history. Now, when I get into pronouncing some of these names, some of you may have a problem because look, Spanish, actual Spanish from Spain, and Spanish known by, for example, some Latin American countries, they may pronounce things differently. So when you see certain things like Zaragoza, for example, which is spelled with a Z, you're like, that's not how you pronounce it. And yes, Zaragoza, for example, might be how you pronounce it if you were from certain Latin American countries. But if you're from Spain, it's Zaragoza. And so this is what I've been told, that every time I pronounce shit, people will lose their shit. So bear with me on the pronunciation. But here's the crazy part. So the area in Spain known as Zaragoza, or I think as close as I can get, this town where Luis Royo grew up and was born, he was surrounded by mythology that had to do with witches and ghosts and paranormal, and it has a long history back from the 1500s and witch trials. All around that area of Spain, witch trials are a common thing. And the town in which he lived, or the city in which he lived and grew up, had a long history for the 1500s of witchcraft and legends and the building of a tower. There was a very specific tower that was built. It was a clock tower. And the legend has it that the clock tower became possessed by an entity of some kind, not necessarily a witch, but some kind of entity possessed the clock tower. It always leaned slightly in this town since the day was created in the 1500s. And then another gentleman lived in that period, Goya, I think is how you pronounce his name. He was a famous artist that came back in like the 1700s. So town built in the the clock tower built in the 1500s, and legends of witches and paranormal and all kinds of strong feminine characters, which show up in Royo's writings and artwork. In the book, he gives descriptions of strong female characters, which he often thinks of as goddesses. But strong female witches and witchcraft and all the stuff that goes back to easily the 1500s and witch trials, when people were burnt, women were burned at the stake, kind of the whole Spanish Inquisition. You've heard of the Spanish Inquisition. All that period seems to be rich in history of where Luis Royo actually developed his artwork. He was surrounded by strong female characters. So keep that in mind when we get into the deck. Now, Goya was a predecessor of his by 2 centuries in the 1700s, whereas now Royo's in our current time. And Goya also had an obsession with painting witches and occult-like ceremonies and winged creatures and things like this. So it makes you wonder about the area. Why is it that area in Spain has such a rich history with witches, witchcraft, and to this day, by the way, they still have ceremonies that are witchcraft ceremonies and celebrate the history. It's got all kinds of paranormal connections still. It's just a weird general area. And that is the area that Luis Royo grew up in. And he had created an I Ching deck, which is a Chinese divination system. And also he's lent his art to tarot decks. And he has long had a fascination. He calls the images that he paints, the erotica and the fantasy women that he paints, he considers them things from his dreams and his demons. And he kind of has he refers to it that way. It's things from his subconscious, his dreams, and the way that he grew up. He's always been immersed in this world. Does he channel things? Does he channel the images that we see in these cards? And again, while you might be inclined to say that, well, look, this deck has images that he painted long before it was tarot. And yes, let's talk a little bit about the history of Royo's books. Now, he had cards. He had originally had a deck. I'm going to put it on screen here. He originally had a deck called the Black Tarot, which is shown right here. This was his first, I think, attempt at a tarot deck. The Black Tarot, 1998. It was published for a foreigner, or a foreigner. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. And it used his existing artwork. And it was mostly just the major arcana. All of the other cards in the tarot deck, the other of 78 cards, were just kind of pips. They weren't images. They didn't have the ace through 10, for example, of wands or chalices or whatever illustrated. It was just kind of the major arcana. And then in between that, in 2005, Luis Royo created the Labyrinth Tarot. And that deck he designed 100% from the scratch. Every bit of artwork in the Labyrinth Tarot was designed by him, for him, specifically for tarot, instead of just being paintings, for example, that got retroactively applied. And so, yes, in some regards, I get why you might think to yourself, well, wait a minute, if the artwork already existed and he just went through his collection of art and says, here, you can use this for the Fool card, you can use this for the Wheel, you might be inclined to think that there's bullshit to it. But again, keep the rich history of witchcraft and strong feminine figures and the stories that were going on at the time. And then, so again, 1998, he has his first, the Black Tarot shown there. In 2005, he came out with the Labyrinth Tarot. We're not going to show an image of that. And then in 2012 is where he developed this one, which is the Royo Dark Tarot, which is kind of using some of the images from the Black Tarot, the first one he had, and applying it with all of the cards illustrated now, the ace through 10 of all the suits and all the royal court cards and so on. And yes, while he did use images that maybe some of those images he had around already and applied them to him, he is a longtime student and practitioner, if you will, of divination systems. Again, he created a deck around the I Ching. He's created decks around tarot. He believes in this kind of stuff and believes that they work. And there's a connection between his art and the cards. And that's what I would say. And the book that you see in the picture and you also see in my hand, he wrote the meanings for the cards. So he's telling you the artwork that is depicted on the Fool card, for example, means more this. This is what I was feeling when I painted this. And so it is a combination of, even if it's got art that came after or before the tarot was applied to it, he's still telling you what his feelings and emotions and his interpretation of that card is when applied to the deck. So I would take that seriously. Now I want to lean back for a moment to that tower that I was telling you about. 1504 was when the Torre Nueva. So again, the V, I think in Spanish from Spain is with a B sound. So it's like the new tower, right? Or Torre Nueva, as the closest I can get, and I'm sure I'm slaughtering it. But it was built in 1504, and like I said, the tower always leaned, and it became one of the city's most famous landmarks. It was eventually torn down, and it was a fight of the town. It was torn down in part because in the 1600s, stories began to circulate that a ghost or some kind of supernatural presence was living inside the clock tower, and the clock tower would sometimes chime incorrectly at times, or the clock would stop moving. And there's actual historical writings about the clock doing this. It wasn't just superstition and legend. It was written about and documented, and major historians covered that this was a weird thing and that people would freak out, and the royals of the area would get all freaked out when the clock would stop moving or when it would go off at times that were incorrect. And so it had this long legend, and eventually the clock was torn down. And the town apparently had a fight over the clock tower because it didn't need to be torn down, according to some. They just wanted to tear it down because it had this spooky presence. Other people said, hey, look, it's leaning. It needs to be torn down and redone. And so there was a big fight over whether it should be torn down. When it was torn down, many people believed that the spirit or the entity that lived inside the tower just simply stayed in the area, but no longer resides in the tower, and maybe influenced the workings of Royo and others. So, and so that's just super interesting to kind of think all about that through. It was demolished, by the way, in 1892, in case you want to know exactly when it was destroyed. And by the way, and I thought to myself, you know what? Tarot has traditionally had a tower card. Did the tower card influence the actual card? Did the Torre Nueva, or however you pronounce it, did it actually influence the tarot card of tarot decks? Not so, because the tower card already existed, but it does seem to have this weird connection to the town and the tower that gets destroyed. Most tarot decks have a tower that's being struck by lightning or crumbling apart. It shows some kind of tower falling apart, which is exactly what happened when they destroyed that tower. And by the way, I told you about Goya. Goya, who lived, I think he was born in 1746, and Goya lived through I think the tearing down of the tower, and he did his artwork during that time that the tower and the legends were around. But so closely connected was Goya and his images of witches and witchcraft and stuff like that, inspired by the area. And so connected was he to 2 centuries later, Royo's artwork, that there is now a museum in this town. There's now a museum in this town that has both of their artwork together, showing the connection between them. The legend, these artists that were inspired by the legends of the witches in this area. And so there's a museum where you can go and see Goya's work and Royo's work together side by side. So with all those things aside, you have to ask yourself the question, do you believe that the artist was inspired by the local legends just from folklore? Like, was that just folklore? Was there an actual feminine presence? Was there a feminine presence, an entity that still resides in the area and inspires, like a muse, the artist, to create images of her or the people of the past who lived in the area? Or is it just that once the artist started creating this fantastical artwork associated with this town and the legends, that came its own cultural phenomenon? People started to have more and more stories influenced by the major artists in the area. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was there a spiritual connection in that area that these artists were from that inspired them to make this art? Or did the art come first and then the legends come out of their artwork that was around the area? One will probably never know. But I want to now show you the deck itself and just kind of show you the cards and the artwork and explain some of the things that I want to show you. And I'm going to go ahead and put on a parental advisory sticker on here, because what I'm going to show you is going to have some erotic images. It's going to have some nudity, but this is for the artistic expression of the deck. This is not for gratuitous, whatever the hell you might want to call it. So we're looking at some images that are going to be a little vulgar, perhaps not horrible, but a little vulgar. But I want you to see the artwork, and I want to tell you what resonates with me. I picked probably about 25 cards I want to show you. The deck's 78. I might flip you through all of the cards of the deck because the deck is so freaking worthy of being looked at and discussed and thought about. So I'm going to go ahead and dim the lights and put this on a camera for you to take a peek at. All right, with any luck, I'll be able to show you these cards relatively well. This is the High Priestess card, number 2 in the tarot. And again, these are artwork that kind of already existed. Let me see if I can get it to focus good or not. So there's the High Priestess card. And I love this imagery, all of the bats and the flying creatures. It looks like it's got some kind of building behind her and whatever. It looks like there's like spider legs and shit. The artwork in this entire deck of cards is phenomenal. And again, I wish it would stay focused perfectly, but I wanted you to see some of these things. I love this image. And again, it's a little bit scantily clad women sometimes, but live with it. The Lover's card, super interesting. Look at the Lover's card. The woman has got some kind of beastly figure that is her lover. And again, when you're working with a deck like this, there is dark imagery. There's also light imagery. It's not all dark, but a lot of his artwork is dark fantasy. That's why it's called the Dark Tarot. A lot of the cards are dark in nature. but I just love the artwork, and I wanted to share with you some of these are my favorite cards in here, and then maybe we'll show you some more cards from the deck if you're interested in it. The Chariot card, which traditionally is a couple of horses or whatever, but this is a different. And again, one could argue, well, this was an artwork that maybe already existed that he applied to the Chariot, but she's got chains, she's kind of holding control over what these looks like. There's maybe, is that soldiers in kind of like suits of armor? I'm not sure, but it's just a very cool, and it's got like an engine, kind of like a mechanical shit around her. Just great shit. And again, I love this deck. So sorry for my vulgarity, but I guess if we're looking at erotic artwork on cards, we can drop a few F-bombs and stuff. This is the Hermit card. Very interesting rendering of the Hermit. But a hermit, a person who lives alone and maybe is a wise kind of person. But this is a great image. Love this. I mean, the artwork is just phenomenal on this whole deck. Here is the Tower, and it's an interesting interpretation. It looks like you've got a giant, perhaps, a giant man who's kind of falling over. You've got some symbols of some buildings and stuff like that. You've got a woman who's sitting up against this. I don't know how to even interpret the card, which is what's great about it, because this card can speak to you in so many ways. There's faces up here. There's just so many things to pull out of your psyche, if you believe that cards work that way, like I do. That these cards are just kind of, they make you stop and really look at it and go, well, what is she holding? Feathers? Is she holding a pipe? What is she like? It makes you pull stuff out of your subconscious, in my opinion. This is probably the most erotic card in the deck, perhaps. It's the Two of Chalices, or Cups, if you will. The Lovers, a little vulgar. We won't spend a whole hell of a lot of time, but I love the imagery of the cards. Just really good stuff. The Seven of Chalices. Again, love this card. I love the headdress of the skull. I'm just showing you some of my favorite cards from the deck to kind of give you a feel of what the deck's about. Every one of these cards, by the way, speaks to me. I love this deck. I can't wait to work with this deck for some personal readings and also reasons and readings. The Eight of Cups, or Chalices, kind of a winged angelic type figure. Love that card. The Knave of Chalices. Love this card. It's got some faces up here, and some grimacing looking monstrous creatures, but she seems very at peace, comfortable. She's not bothered by the demons around her, or whatever you want to call it. And I feel it just pulls stuff out of the psyche, and I love it. The Queen of Chalices. A lot of chalice cards came up in my favorite cards. Queen of Chalices, just again, the artwork just speaks to me on so many levels. And I was pulling cards that just, I really wanted to highlight certain cards that I loved for some reason. The King of Chalices. This beastly kind of ape-like creature, gives you a whole kind of like King Kong thing, the Beauty and the Beast. It's just, and the bats in the background, lots of flying creatures and stuff like that. This always gives me the feeling of a Conan the Barbarian book. I used to read some Conan the Barbarian type stuff, and I loved the high fantasy sword and sorcery. And that was the same kind of thing. You had a muscled Conan with his big sword and some scantily clad woman wrapped around his leg kind of thing, and he was the hero that saved the damsel in distress. And I used to kind of like, if nothing else, the imagery. The books were also often gory. The movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Conan the Barbarian, super gory, and it had like, this looked like a snake-like creature, the snake cult, maybe. I don't know. It's just, and there's a snake winding down the staircase here. There's snakes over here. So it very much reminds me of my childhood and Conan the Barbarian, the first movie. Holy shit. The more I look at that, the more I see Conan the Barbarian in that picture. These cards don't want to play right. The Four of Pentacles. Just a great card. Love the tattoo. Love the color in the hair. Love the pose. The serenity. She's at such peace. It's just, I just love the whole thing. This is a very interesting card here, by the way, as well, that I loved. The Six of Pentacles. Kind of like an angelic being holding like a mechanical fallen angel figure, broken down, tainted by society. Again, all these things can pull readings in the right scenario. I would highly recommend this deck for certain types of readings. And yeah, maybe it's a little dark, but I think it's fantastic. Look at this one. This is one of my favorite cards in the deck. It's the Eight of Pentacles. I'm trying to get it to focus just right. But you got a pentagram, you got a snake figure, you've got lots of stuff going on. It's just a fantastic, all the artwork on these cards are just fantastic. The Knave of Pentacles, love this card, all the skulls in the background, the smoky air around her, all those kind of things just works. And this looks like a woman down, look at that. Like you've got all these skulls, but then you've got, looks like a woman down here, which is kind of creepy. But I just love it. Like all these cards they have hidden layers in them that are just worthy. The Knight of Pentacles, like a woman on a white horse. It looks like maybe it's even a unicorn. You got some kind of magician down here, maybe kneeling at something, casting a spell. You've got like a dragon. It's just all around. It's got all this mythology in it. Just great cards. We've got about, I don't know, 8 more cards I want to show you. This one's, again, from the erotic side. Maybe the other is just as erotic as the other one. The King of Pentacles. Very, very cool. I don't know what his deal is, but you can definitely see some eroticism in that card. But the Two of Wands, I love this. Like she's standing on some kind of gargoyle figure. It feels like she's overlooking a battlefield, perhaps that's on fire down below. Just everything about the card is extremely cool. And up here at the top, you can see the wands figure. You've seen the cup. They have got some reminders. This is the Six of Wands. Love this outfit, this get up. Just again, these are just some of my favorite cards from the deck as I give you my closing thoughts on the deck and whether or not you would want to own a copy. I think you should own a copy. Everybody should own a copy of this deck. It's fantastic. Eight of Wands. It's got this kind of like werewolf looking transition, like she's out in the forest, her hands becoming more perhaps feral, and the wolf coming out of her. So it's kind of like this transitioning of a werewolf thing. Love that so much. The King of Wands, again, this hulking figure, which I'm not, it's like ape man kind of thing. Again, very Conan the Barbarian, women at the feet, you know, with maybe collars on and stuff like that. It's got a very kind of like gore or whatever, you know, I don't know how to explain it. I don't want to get sexist, but it's got that same kind of feel of a lot of fantasy that I didn't have those kind of fantasies of dominating and putting women in shackles. Don't get that shit twisted. But during my teen years, that kind of those kind of fantasy books caught my attention. The Two of Swords, love this image, love the makeup, love the get up, love the outfit. Looks dangerous and seductive at the same time. Just good shit. I loved this card. It's like 3 vampires. They even got kind of blood at the corners of their mouth against a moon. I think of 3 muses. I think of 3 witches. I think of 3 vampires. Everything about this just kind of, I love this card, and it just, I don't know, just love. I love the artwork. Love the artwork. I just wanted to share with you some of my favorite cards. The Nine of Swords, kind of again, kind of like a angelic, maybe, is it a suspended being that's kind of hung there, or is it something else? I don't know, but it's good shit. It evokes emotions. Is he flying or is he suspended? I don't know. The Knave of Swords, a very, very striking image. Love all the animal stuff, like the leopard skin stuff and all that stuff like that. Is just and she's got this little creature. She's got this little creature on her shoulder. So many things to pull out of these images. And then last but not least of the cards that I pulled aside for you, the King of Swords. Just loved this kind of dark, shadowy figure. Something here beside him, something there beside him there. Just good shit. Real briefly, if you wanted to see, I'll flip through all the cards for you to have a chance to see. I can cut this out of the long form video perhaps, or just go quick. So let's go here. The Fool, and these are out of order now because I pulled out cards. The Magician card, if you want to see them all. The Empress, great card. Love these little things up, like, what are these, like scorpions and shit? I don't know what the hell they are. The Emperor, not one of my favorite cards in the deck, but it's still good. There's no bad card on this deck. The Hierophant, I love this. The dragon on a bunch of, like, you know, Hierophant's kind of like a priest, you know, a scholar kind of thing. And so this woman on her stack of books, dragons are often considered wise, very intelligent creatures in some mythology. So it's very cool. Love the Justice card as well, with this creature behind her that's kind of shackled. His arms are shackled with a bar between them. Just some very cool imagery. The Wheel, I love the Wheel card. I love the Wheel. This interpretation of the wheel behind her and stuff like that is so cool. Strength, oftentimes like depicted with a lion, but she's taming a beast. Like, this woman is taming this beast with her weapon, and he's kind of a beastly guy that she's, you know, he's got her hand around her waist, like he's got control of her, but she's like pulling his hair back and she's in control with the weapon. Like, it's got a lot of cool shit going on. And by the way, masks, did you see the mask up here? There's a lot of cards that have masks in them, which can give you other readings and meanings behind this. The Hanged Man, I love the interpretation of the Hanged Man. Very, very unique. Guy's kind of upside down with his arms splayed out. And maybe an erotic pose. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into that and get us in trouble. The Death is great. Death is a very cool card. Everybody is afraid of the Death card. A lot of people are afraid of the Death card, but the Death card is not so ominous, not so creepy. The Devil card, funny. Like, one of the most least ominous card is the Devil card. No, this is Temperance. Sorry, Temperance. I saw the Devil right there. This is Temperance, not the Devil. That would be weird if this was the Devil, but Temperance. There's the Devil. And that's more like it. I was like, why the hell is the Devil so non-freaky? But it looks like it's coming out of the water. It's got a tail, some kind of creature coming out of the water. It's very cool. The Stars. A lot of owls. Love that. The Moon. Some of these cards are not traditionally named. The Sun. Kind of wing. She's got a winged creature, maybe a succubus kind of feel to it. Judgment. Judgment's always this angel. And so again, it's got an angelic figure. So his artwork is being applied loosely to the traditional tarot. The World card, this one is not very traditional, but it's very cool. The Ace of Chalices or Cups. Kind of hard to tell in this picture what's going on. There's kind of a masked figure behind it. And it's really hard to tell what's going on in the image, but the Three of Chalices, the Four of Chalices. Looks like they're inside some kind of crypt or something there. The Five of Chalices. She got some kind of like bladed fingers on. And what's this creature or character back here? I don't know what that is. Just good shit. The Six of Chalices. It's hard to, for traditional tarot, it's hard perhaps to see how that relates to the Six of Chalice or Six of Cups in a tarot deck. And again, you have to, he's got a book, you know, here as well. It's in like 5 different languages, but he's got a book that tells you what his readings and his interpretations of the cards are and what they mean to him and how it applies to the traditional tarot. The Nine of Chalices. Sorry for the blurriness. Sometimes it gets a focus lock and sometimes it doesn't. The Ten of Chalices. The Knight of Chalices, some kind of rodent-looking creature that she's riding. It's an ROUS, a rodent of unusual size. Do you know what that's from? That's one of my favorite movies. It's ROUS, rodents of unusual size. I don't think they exist. Anyways, I'm doing a side tangent, little ode to one of my favorite movies ever. Leave a comment if you know the name of that movie that I just quoted about ROUSs. The Two of Pentacles. Great card. I wasn't going to go through the whole deck, and maybe I'll cut this out for other people, but I think that it's worth seeing. Look at this weird toad-looking figure or whatever that is. The Three of Pentacles. The Five of Pentacles. The Seven of Pentacles. She looks kind of chromish, but transparent as well. Maybe it's better that I don't pull these up to the camera. The Nine of Pentacles. Got some like something in her hair there. I don't know. Her wings are kind of fucked up. I don't know. All these things I dig. The 10 of Pentacles. The Queen of Pentacles. Just trying to get through these cards for you so we can keep this about an hour for the reading, or under an hour. Sorry, we're about a half hour actually. We're well ahead of this. The Ace of Wands. The Three of Wands. The Four of Wands. This has your real traditional sword and sorcery fan. This looks like a D&D cover for a D&D game. The Five of Wands. It's like you got your elf, and you got your dwarf, and you got your ranger, or something. Maybe this is your yeah, I don't know. That's maybe a barbarian. That's your elf ranger or whatever with his bow, and then you've got. But anyways, it's a very D&D looking thing. Takes me back to the days. Seven of Wands. The Nine of Wands. Love this shoulder piece for armor. 10 of Wands. Kind of an oriental feel to it, really early for me. The Knave of Wands. The Knight of Wands. What a great card. Again, that just looks like a fantasy art cover for a book. Like, you know, it's like a Game of Thrones kind of book cover you'd think of. Queen of Wands. Love the things on the staircase here. Ace of Swords. The Three of Swords. Love this. Four of Swords, this like dragon skull or whatever it is. The Five of Swords. The Six of Swords, kind of a vampire feel to this, right? The Eight of Swords. That headdress is funky as hell. Makeup is interesting. Why is she all scarred up? Like, I don't know. The whole thing could make you, and then like these shadowy images up there in the corner. I just loved all the imagery. So good. 10 of Swords. The Knight of Swords. That's a very Conan the Barbarian feeling card. The Queen of Swords. And that's it. So what are my final thoughts about the Royo Dark Tarot? Well, for starters, I think I can't wait to use the deck. The imagery is phenomenal. Love everything about it. I'm not going to do a pull for you, but by the way, for the backs of the cards, they are reversible, meaning you couldn't tell if it's right side or upside down, so you can have reverse readings on this deck. So going back to the question, is it a tarot deck, or is it a fantasy artist who they're just ripping off to use some art and try to sell some of his art and saying it's a tarot deck? I feel like if you think about his history, about where he grew up and the town and its association with strong females, female entities, witches, and all through the witch trials and the Spanish Inquisition and all that kind of stuff of that, it feels like it's significant that where this artist and the preceding artist, Goya, before him, 2 centuries before, that there's something about the place where they grew up that inspired these men to have these images of strong females. I think they had you get the same kind of feel in Goya's stuff. So strong females, witches, and that kind of stuff, entities, ghosts, and stuff that comes out of their subconscious. Is there something actually there in the town that inspired the art, or did the artist inspire the legends? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Consider buying a copy of the Royo Dark Tarot. I highly recommend it. I'm going to use it, and maybe we'll do some readings on for members only with this deck and show you what I do with it and how I like it. Hope you enjoyed this review. Have a great day.